This is the Forex Trading Psychology Podcast. This is VP, creator of No Nonsense Forex and author of the book No Nonsense Forex Trading Psychology. And with me, as always, is Robb Reinhold from Maverick Trading.
Hey Patrick, hey everybody, how's it going? This is Robb from Maverick Currencies and Maverick Trading. We're a prop firm. If you don't know what a prop firm is, I will tell you about it.
Well, good. And on that note, we are, as always, sponsored by Maverick Currencies. And Robb, what do you have for us on that front today?
I wanted to answer a couple of questions that we received in the comments section. If you don't know what a prop firm is, we are a company that you come aboard with us and you trade with our capital, and we enter into a profit sharing agreement with you where you keep 70 to 80% of the profits you generate. We keep 20 to 30. Now everyone says, oh, that's awesome. I love that idea. Hold on. We do have some requirements. And this is the question I got. What are your requirements to be able to trade your capital? Now, Maverick is a little bit different from some of the other prop firms. We start you off with a $10,000 fully funded account, where others will start you off with just a little bit or a demo account. So we want to make sure you know what you're doing. So we do have 3 requirements. The first requirement is you pass our series of online tests. You have unlimited retakes to pass a test. So look, this is an easy one. Some of you will fly right through it. Some of you might have to do a little bit of studying on some of the questions we have. Unlimited retakes, you'll pass those, no problem. Number 2, you must prove that you can trade on a demo account. So if you have demo statements, great. If not, you can have live trading statements as well. We don't care. We just need to see your numbers beforehand. And then the third thing is you must submit a written, well-defined trading plan. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at your trading plan and your trading statements and make sure that they follow each other. Sometimes we have people turn in a trading plan and then we look at their trades and they're wildly different. They might be profitable, but it's different. And with that person, we say, hold on, these have to match up. We only want systematic traders that follow systems. We don't want wildcat traders. You must have those 3 things. Pass our tests, turn in a detailed trading plan, and then turn in demo or live statements that show that you can follow that system and that you do have an edge in the markets. So I just wanted to answer that question as we've had that from a couple of people.
It's a question that needed to be answered, so I'm glad we did that. But let's go ahead and move on to the episode. Now, this is another Robb special where he came up with this idea, and he's got a lot of really great material. So I am just going to kind of steer the ship a little bit and let Robb take it from here. How would you open this one up?
Well, let me open this one up with where we were back in episode 1. If you remember, I gave a speech at a Traders Expo to a couple hundred people. And the first thing I said is, none of this stuff is going to work because you suck. Now, episode 1, 2, and 3 of the Trading Psychology Podcast have basically been exactly that, showing you all the reasons and all the ways that you can fail as a trader. And it really comes down to the programming that you have, the emotions you feel, and your habits. I went on to Patrick's YouTube channel and I looked through all the comments. There were a couple of comments that basically said, thank you so much. I finally understand why I keep making the same mistake. Will you please show us how? And then the next episode was like, hey, this is why you're making mistakes. And I want to get to the point where we're actually now solving the problem. That's what this episode is all about. It's about behavior change.
Yet, if I can jump in for just a moment there, Robb, if you don't mind, all the majority of the trading psychology videos I put up on my playlist are very solutions-based. So you can always go there. But we, in this episode, are going to drill down much more specifically to the things we're talking about before. If you guys don't know my methodology by now, the early episodes, if you're wondering why they are the way they are, they're always the ones we end up pointing back to because they are pretty much the core of what we're talking about, in all the episodes after. Pay very close attention to those, and then we're going to slowly start building off of those early episodes as we go.
And that's exactly what we're doing here in this podcast is the first couple episodes are really laying the groundwork for everything we cover after. I want to introduce to you the first concept of this podcast, and this is called the Transtheoretical Model of Behavior Change. So there are 6 steps to it, and the first one is called pre-contemplation. The first 3 podcasts we did was really about pre-contemplation. It means that you don't even know why you're doing things. You don't know why you keep overtrading. You don't know why you keep moving your stops. You just keep doing it and you say, don't you dummy, don't be so stupid, be more disciplined, and you keep doing it. You have no concept of why you're even doing it. The first 3 episodes were to get you to the point where you say, oh, that's why I keep doing it. All of a sudden, now you're in the contemplation stage. You're aware that a problem exists, but at this point, you have no way to fix it. And that's what this episode is all about, is, okay, we've gotten you to the point where you now are in the contemplation phase. Now I start to understand why I do what I do. We're going to be focusing on action. What actions can you take to actually change your behaviors? So it starts next with preparation, goes into action, and then it goes into maintenance. Now, part of maintenance is relapse. Relapse is the concept that you are probably not going to get it right the first time. You're probably going to have to work at it over and over and over again. I want to go through this transtheoretical model of behavior change. This is what the psychiatric community uses for everything, and that's what we're going to be using here in our podcast.
We try to do solutions on my channel, but we're actually deep diving into this particular solution, which is really nice.
I know that a lot of you weren't expecting such a deep dive into psychology. And you thought, oh, trading psychology, we're going to learn a little bit of this. This is deep, deep stuff. You don't necessarily need to know exactly how the sausage is made in order to enjoy the meal. And I'm going to be going through this, but I just want you to grab a couple little concepts of what it is you're trying to accomplish. Understanding that will make the process much, much easier. In front of you are the 3 stages of neuroplastic behavior change. The first thing we need to change is the chemicals in your brain. All of episode 3 was all about your brain chemistry. We talked about hunger. We talked about sleep. We talked about coming home from work. We talked about meditation. We talked about everything we could do to get the chemicals in your brain the right way. Without the chemicals correct in your brain, you're going to have a very difficult time making structural change, which is the next step. It's the reason when someone goes through a traumatic experience, the very first thing they do is they focus on getting the brain chemicals right with typically some antidepressant drugs or something like that. You can't enact behavior change until those chemicals are mellowed down enough to where you can actually think. And that's the next step, is structural change. What can you do to actually reprogram your brain? This is reprogramming your brain. And then the great thing is, once you've reprogrammed your brain, you have what's called a functional change, meaning you no longer have to think about it. You are unconsciously competent at whatever you're doing. You don't have to think about it. Now that is the point that we want to get everyone to where you no longer even have any compulsion to mess up your trading system. You've spent all this time building it, and you get to the point where you literally have no desire to do anything different. Patrick, do you remember the time you got to that point?
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, it was a long ass time from when I started, though, because the way I got there is when I no longer felt I had meaningful money or progress on the line, if this makes sense. In the past, this is going to sound so degenerate, but this is kind of how we start off. I had $1,500 in my leveraged Forex trading account. I had $400 in the bank. All right. So you can imagine the pressure I was under all the time with something like that. There's no way you can think straight like that. I mean, you're going all in on something in like year one. I'm not even going to explain how dumb that is. I think it's pretty obvious. I finally got there when I turned pro with you guys. And then after a while, between, trading and investing in my business, I didn't have to worry about the money end of it as much. And I could just trade. So I didn't have any of that. Oh my God, am I going to run out of money? Oh my God, am I going to take huge drawdown and never be able to come out of it? Oh my God, am I not going to progress, the way I want to here? As soon as all those worries left my head, I was able to just trade, and I became exponentially better.
That is such a great place to be as a trader. And I use the term, you want to get to the point where you're trading for the sake of trading. And what I mean by that is you're only trading because there's a good setup. You're not trading because you need to pay the bills. You're not trading because you're bored. You're not trading because of any other reason. The only reason you're trading is because the setup fits your models. I tell everyone, you can learn all the X's and O's of trading in 3 to 6 months. It's not that hard. This process takes 3 to 7 years. And that's where I was.
Amen.
I was right about the 5 to 7 years where I finally got to the point where I no longer wanted to screw it up. I just wanted to follow my system, do my thing. I didn't care what the market did. I didn't care what anything else did. I just wanted to do my thing. What about you?
Yeah, if I'm doing the math right, about 7 years was right for me. Like you have to understand though, I don't want people to get disheartened by hearing this. Oh, I got to wait 7 years. My YouTube channel's only been around for, almost 5 years. So people who've been trading in that system haven't even put 5 years in, much less 4 or 3 or even 2. I had to create a system from scratch. So it did take me much longer. I didn't have anything there to help me. For me, it was definitely the 7-year mark to where I can really point to where I could just put it on cruise control and do what I was supposed to do without having all that external pressure.
I'm glad you brought that up because, look, I was profitable through those first 5 to 7 years. I made money, but it was wild. There was huge swings. There were low moments. And I tell everyone, this business has brought me to tears twice. And I don't cry a lot. And this business was really tough getting through those years. And it wasn't until year, again, 5 to 7, where I didn't experience those wild swings, where I just plugged away and did it. It was easy. It was relaxed. It was methodical. We're not saying you can't make money until you get this figured out. What we're saying is you're going to be making mistakes along the way until you figure it out. That's it. And this is part of the process of becoming a trader. Everyone thinks it's in the charts. Everyone thinks it's learning all the indicators. That is definitely part of it. But the hardest part in the world of trading is to get yourself to the point where you can manage yourself correctly. Once you do that, you're a pro.
Yeah, no, honestly, if I would have just taken some pieces of what I did in the very early days and I just traded and went for it, I would have done a lot better. You said you made money those first 5 to 7 years. Those first 3 years, I didn't make anything. At least I just kind of went for it, but I didn't have a system. So it's kind of funny. I build the system and now I don't want to go for it as much, which is stupid because I tested that system. I knew it worked. I should have just let it go, but I had all those external pressures. It just took a very long time for me to get that out of my system.
That is a very natural thing that you experienced. I see this all the time. People, when they start out, they are reckless. They overtrade. They're overconfident. And then the market humbles you. And you actually get to a point where you are the opposite of all those things. You undertrade. We have a whole episode coming up on undertrading. We're going to talk about how your confidence can be low at some points. That is a very natural thing that you experience throughout this whole process. The purpose of this episode is to really walk people through the process that they're going to go through. I wish I had a magic wand. I wish I could snap my fingers and make it to where you didn't have to go through this process. I'm sorry, but this is the process of becoming a professional trader. So let's go through the Transtheoretical model of behavior change. You don't need to know what it's called. You don't need to even remember it. But what you do need to remember is that anytime you have a problem, psychology in your trading is causing an issue with, this is how you change it. You, number one, figure out why you're making it. Number two, make a plan on what you're going to do. And the plan is not be more disciplined. If you could have done that, you would have already done it. You already blew that one. More discipline is not the answer. Preparation. We're going to have plans on how to actually change that behavior. We're going to enact that preparation into action. We're going to get a payoff from that. And that's going to cause a positive feedback loop where you say, oh, that wasn't so bad, or hey, I really like how that worked. It's going to make it easier for you to modify your behavior. Future, we have to be constantly on guard with maintenance. And look, you're human. You have to forgive yourself. You are going to mess up along the way. It's okay. I tell all of our traders, look, you're going to go from making a mistake a day to a mistake a week. You're still going to hate yourself when you make a mistake that week, but then you're going to go to making a mistake a month. And you're still going to hate yourself that you can't believe that you're doing it. But that is progress. And then you make a mistake a quarter, you make one mistake a year, and at some point, you just don't make a mistake anymore. This is the cycle of what we're going through. And we're really laying the groundwork for our next episodes because we're going to dive into very specific issues that people have. We talked about undertrading. We're going to talk about overtrading. We're going to talk about having multiple wins in a row, having multiple losses in a row. How do you deal with the slump? All of that is going to follow this model here to get you to the point where you actually create a positive feedback loop and change the behavior.
So traders, do you understand why we do episodes like this early? We just spent 3 episodes identifying some very base level problems. And now we have the blueprint for the solution. Now you might notice too, if you look at this wheel, it's a bit vague, which is fair to say. The episodes after this, we're going to be drilling down into these individual things that are plaguing you. But you need to have this blueprint first, because this here is the solution. Does that make sense?
And not just the solution. We can do everything from contemplation on. We're going to help you with all these aspects. And look, some of you may listen to an episode and you say, well, I don't have that issue. Okay, maybe that didn't really help you out, but there's going to be some episodes exactly what you need. But what we need is for you to be at the contemplation stage. Aware that a problem exists. Understand why you keep doing what you're doing. Fully understand it. I shared with you in the last episode that overtrading was one of my issues in the beginning. The reason I overtraded, I had to come to a very hard realization that the reason I overtraded was because I was bored. I hate to say that. I hate to admit that out loud because that is the lamest reason to lose money, because you were bored. I mean, heck, I should have just gone gambling. I would have had way more fun pulling a slot machine or playing some blackjack. But it was because I was bored. Once I finally got to that point, I could actually start to plan, prepare some actions to where I could fix it. Before that, I was in pre-contemplation. I didn't know why I kept clicking the button. I didn't know why I kept undermining myself. Patrick, in episode 3, you talked about your overconfidence. When did you finally realize that that was causing you a lot of pain?
When I kept losing all my money and had to start from scratch. I guess the second time, and then I still gave it a third try, and I took a couple losses right off the bat, and then I said, okay, maybe this isn't what you first thought it was, and maybe you need to take a bit of a more methodical approach where you actually test things instead of just eyeball it and say, wow, this looks amazing.
So here's the ultimate irony of the situation. So let's say today's Patrick got a time machine and could go back and talk to first-year trader Patrick, and you would tell that Patrick all the things that they need to do. Would that Patrick listen to you?
Does that Patrick know I'm from the future, or am I just a random guy?
No, it fully knows you're from the future.
He probably would, actually. In my entire life, I've kind of flown without a net. I didn't have a whole lot of guidance, even though I wanted it. Any kind of direction, I think, at that point, especially if it came from me and not another person who's not me, I actually think I would have listened.
Well, hats off to you, because if future me came back in time and told today me I need to do something, I'd tell him to F off and figure it out myself.
Yeah, I guess there is value in that, right? There's one way to learn. I guess if I would have took my own advice back then I never would have learned, and I never would have had the experience under my belt. So there is something to be said for that. You're right.
To wrap up this episode, this is really, like we said, laying the groundwork for things, and we're going to be going through everything. All the episodes after this, we're going to be talking about the issue. We need you to get to the contemplation stage where you fully understand why you do it. And it's going to be different for everybody. We are going to give you ideas of preparation, things that you can do, actions you can take, and how to maintain it. We also need you to understand that part of the behavior change model is relapse. You will mess it up again. Now look, hopefully you don't. And maybe some of you are going to flip that switch once and it's going to stick and you're going to be perfect. Others of us, especially people like me, who would tell their future self to F off and figure it out themselves, we are going to relapse all the time. And you have to be kind to yourself. And we have to plan for that. We'll talk about relapse in all the episodes, and we'll talk about things like preparing for relapse. One of the things I started to do, I recognized that when I had a long string of gains, I became very cocky, very overconfident. I started to not follow position sizing rules. I started to deviate from my system, and I took bigger losses than I should have. At some point, I recognized, oh, this is who you are. You're always going to do it. Once I had a big gain, I would take money out of my account, put it in the bank, specifically for when I blew it up, I could put that money back in my account and have a good size funding account. That is so delusional and so crazy, but guess what? I knew I had to do it. I prepared for the relapse. I said, hey, I know I'm going to screw it up again. Let me prepare for it. And so when I did screw it up, I didn't have to dig myself out of a big hole like I had to in the past. I now just could throw some of that money back in. I was back to where I was the month before, And I said, okay, I'm humbled now. Now I'm going to do it right.
It's so funny. I've never heard anybody do that on two fronts. One, say that you knew you were going to relapse, so you protected yourself from yourself. And then that little tactic with the money. I don't know how I feel about that. I would actually have to sit down and think about it. But that's the first I've ever heard. You're so spot on with the relapse part. And I hate to break it to you traders, but if it hasn't come yet, it's going to come. And if it's only come once or twice, it's probably going to happen again. I think the most actionable thing you can do is, prep for it, like Rob said, but just understand it's going to happen anyway. Like if somebody came to me and said, hey, VP, you're going to break your leg in 2023 at some point. I can't tell you when, but I know it's going to happen. I'd be like, well, okay. I mean, that totally sucks, but if it's going to happen, let's just get ready for it and bring it on so I can start, the rehab process.
Let's build that ramp into your house right away. Let's just build that ramp.
But perhaps, I mean, what else am I going to do, right? If it's coming anyway, it's coming anyway. And I'm telling you, this relapse is coming anyway. Prepare for it. Again, like we're going to help you along with that process and drill down deeper in future episodes. But this was great, Rob. This is the type of stuff that you'll never see on my old videos. So I'm glad we're doing this now.
And frankly, I've never seen it anywhere else. I want to give a shout out to a gentleman named Brett Steenbarger. He is like the king of trading psychology. If you want to go check him out, his stuff is great. It's wonderful. It's all wonderful stuff, but when you really get into brain chemistry, programming, it starts to make a little bit more sense. It's something we do at Maverick. We want to make sure that we are at the cutting edge of everything as far as technology and as far as psychology to help our traders out.
All right, traders. So on that note, we will wrap it up here. For VP over here at No Nonsense Forex, we will see you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.